Hi, this is Matt with MakeUseOf.com, and I'm here to talk to you about Path of Exile, an excellent free-to-play action RPG. Unlike a lot of free-to-play games, though, Path of Exile is not exactly easy. It's really designed for more hardcore action RPG fans. So if you come into this game not really knowing what you're getting into, you may find it rather frustrating. You may find that you have a hard time progressing after a certain point. So I'm here to help all the newbies figure out how to play Path of Exile. I've got 5 tips that should really help you design your first character build and get through the game without running into any major obstacles. Tip number 1, you need more life. No, seriously, you almost certainly need more life on your character. Life, of course, keeps your character alive. And the monsters, particularly the bosses in Path of Exile, can hit pretty hard. You'll find that if you don't pick up life nodes, a unbuffed character could easily get killed in 1, 2, maybe 3 shots by some of the bosses by mid-game. To counteract the damage the monsters put out, you need to go find the life nodes on your passive skill tree. They are available for all the classes, although a little bit more for some than for others. And you're going to be seeing some that add a set number, usually like plus 10 or plus 20, and some that add a percentage. The way it works is the ones that add a set number, add that to your base health value, and then the percentage basically multiplies your base health value to give you even more life. So you want to strike a balance there, because if your base life is extremely low, each percentage bonus is also going to be lower. But if you don't add any percentage bonuses, you're going to find that you don't have enough life overall to stay alive. You're generally going to want to pick up probably 3 or 4 life nodes for every 10 levels, more towards the 4 or maybe even 5 if you are a melee class. Tip number 2, pay attention to common items. You're going to find out that while magic items do drop in Path of Exile, they aren't the only items that you should be looking for, because there are a variety of different things that an item can offer you, including gem slots of different colors, connected gem slots, and also bonuses from superior items. Because this game has a number of items that can be used to upgrade weapons and armor into rare and epic level items, you may find that the common sword that happens to have all the gem slots that you would like to have for your particular build is very valuable, whereas a yellow item that doesn't have very many gem slots is kind of worthless for you. Now, a lot of players find this counterintuitive at first, just because all the other action RPGs that have come out mainly focus on finding items just from monsters. And if there is crafting, it's usually limited. But in Path of Exile, you will end up crafting some of your own high-level items through the various orbs of chance, orbs of transmutation, and etc. that you find throughout the game, and you apply to common white items in order to make them a lot better than they originally were. Tip number 3, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. One of the great things about Path of Exile that makes it really replayable is that you can make many different kinds of builds. There's no restrictions on what your class can use as far as gems. There's no restrictions on the passive abilities that your class can use. You can eventually go any way you would like to on the passive skill tree. Thing is, though, when you're first starting out, trying to make some sort of crazy build probably isn't a very good idea. Not only do you not know a lot about how the passive skill tree works, but you may not have everything you need outside of the passive skill tree to make the build work. For example, gems are not guaranteed drops. There are some you're going to get early in the game through quests, and you do know you'll get those. But there's also a lot of rarer gems that you may not come across until you've played through the normal campaign and then gone into the cruel campaign for a while. Also, a lot of the builds that you see posted on the forums assume that you have a fair amount of wealth and you can acquire certain items that make the build more effective. Unfortunately, as a player that's just starting out, that's really not going to work out for you. So what you want to do is you want to just sort of focus on a certain specialty that'll make your build strong. You want to say, I'm going to do elemental damage, or I'm going to do physical damage with two-handers, or I'm going to go for bows, something like that. Focus on that, look at the passive skill tree, find the things that make just a couple abilities stronger, and use that to build your first character. Then later, when you have more wealth, when you have more items, when you got some stuff in your stash, you can think about doing some of these crazy builds that just totally break the game. Tip number 4. On a related note, you shouldn't be lured in by Keystones, which are the passive skills that fundamentally change the way your character plays. You're going to see these around the edge of the passive skill tree, and they can do some pretty crazy things. There's one that makes all of your damage fire damage, but also gets rid of 50% of your non-fire damage. There are Keystones that allow you to evade spells, but also reduce your other defenses. There's blood magic, which completely gets rid of your mana and makes all your spells take from your life. Some of this stuff's pretty cool. And there's builds online which are revolving around these Keystones. But again, as a new player, it's pretty hard to make effective use of these, because Keystones require optimization of a certain stat or group of stats. To use blood magic again as an example, you're not really going to want to use that unless you have a ton of life. And if you are a new player who doesn't have a lot of magical items, there's nothing in your stash, you may find it very difficult to get your life up to a point where you're comfortable using blood magic with your character. Also, since Path of Exile doesn't have a lot of respec options, you aren't going to be able to completely redesign your character if you go to one of these Keystones and then you suddenly find out that what you'd planned hadn't worked. You may end up having to re-roll a new character entirely. And last but not least, you really need to plan ahead in Path of Exile. What I mean by that is the variety of choices you have available even as a new player with your first character are so great that if you just try to wing it, try to play it by ear, you can find yourself in a really bad position with a build that just doesn't work. And as I mentioned already, you can't really respec out of it easily. So you need to kind of have an idea of what you're doing going forward. Now you can go to the official forums and look for builds, but as said, you also have to be careful with that because there are a lot of builds on the official forums that assume you have certain items or a certain level of wealth. A better idea might be to just go to poebuilder.com, and that site's a great resource for planning out what you want your character to do. It will let you put in your skills, see what the effects are, see how much health you end up with. You can even plan for certain items, certain gems, and see how that will affect your stats once your build is complete. You don't necessarily have to go in and build your character from first level to max level in one go, but it is a good idea before you sit down and you start playing Path of Exile, make sure your build has a plan for, like, say, the next 10 levels, so you don't find yourself getting to a point where you're starting to get levels, you're not sure where to go, and you're just guessing, because that's a really good way to end up gimping your build. And when you gimp your build, you get frustrated and you find that you might not be able to defeat the bosses at all and have to start over from the very beginning. So those are the top 5 tips for new Path of Exile players. I hope you found them useful, and you continue to tune in to makeuseof.com on YouTube. This has been Matt with makeuseof.com. Thanks for watching.